for that matter. Yeah.
Thank you. So I was in a marriage that was very emotionally abusive. And for me, I don't focus on the marriage, but all I tell people is, people think we glorify divorce, but it's a very painful process. Because you see, you're walking out from things and a foundation that you have built. You have family, you have relationships, you have friends, as you're saying today. So I left my marriage because of the abuse in 2012, because I went through a mental breakdown because of the abuse in the marriage. So after that, I decided I just want to go out there and try and make things work. Now, the hardest process that people don't understand is the walking out and rebuilding. That is very difficult because people think you're actually just running away from a situation, but the reality is you're coming out bruised. It's like you're from a burning house. So you've come out, you're burnt, you're in pain, you're going through this. So when I left, I actually left with nothing. People go to courts, they fight for property. I didn't fight for anything. All I wanted was my peace and my children. So now once I left, the difficult part was actually now, and when I left, he took responsibility for absolutely nothing. Okay. So one, I had to depend on people. You know, like just ask people, help me, help me. It gets to a point, it's called donor fatigue. You know? So guys get to a point, they're like, we are tired, okay? All relationships, people decide who is going with you and who's getting left behind. Most of the married people don't want to be associated with you. Yes. The church does not want to be associated with you. Yes. And also family. You know, now you're here, we have you, and we have 2 children to take care of. But for me, I was fortunate when I left. My siblings, some of my siblings were extremely supportive, and it was easy for me to get out of that. And also also relatives. I had a cousin who housed me for close to a year. So I got to a point where now I needed to find myself again and start now the healing journey. So one of the things is I was not just recovering from the divorce, and that's what people forget. I was also recovering from the abuse in the marriage. Right. So when we talk about recovery, it's not just about the divorce process, but what you have experienced in the marriage.
That marriage.
Yes.
All right, quite interesting. And Tony Hutia is here, equally divorce recovery coach. Tony, out of experience, out of learning, or why do you just sit and decide that you're going to be a divorce recovery coach?
I think there are circumstances that led to that. The main reasons is because probably the trauma that I went through after divorce. So I decided now I would like to be a support system for the guys or ladies who are going through the process. Okay, because that time when I was going through divorce, we didn't have any opportunity to get any support on this whole process. Okay, so it became very difficult. Even to be able to get through it, right? So when I got through it and I discovered a few other things in that process, I said, okay, I'd like to throw myself out there and be able to support people who are going through divorce and separation and make it probably an easy landing for them. Yeah, but by the time...
Is there a point of healing in totality? Maybe I'll throw it to you, Catherine. Is there a point where you see...
I think healing is a journey because every single day there is a new challenge. You know, for me, I kept thinking once they are 18, then now I'm parenting adults. You know, we were making fun the other day and saying there is now the wedding things where we have to talk about, you know, like, yes. So for me, what I say is it is actually a process. And you get to a point, there are things you look back to. Like for me, when I meet somebody who has recently been divorced, you know, the pain, the betrayal, I've healed from that. Right. You see, so now I'm dealing with other things. So the best thing, as Tony said, is getting to a point where you're able to recognize that you have overcome challenges that you were dealing with before, and those coming behind you, you're able to tell them, don't worry, this will pass, and this is how you handle this situation. So it's a process.
Tony, are we hearing your story this morning?
What part do you...
Briefly, just briefly. You know, she summarized hers. I think it's only fair now that you say you've gone through it. You also get to know, are there kids involved, what really played out somewhere in there.
Yes, so I went through the separation in 2012, and we had 2 kids at that time, right? We had been married for nearly 10 years, because we got married in 2002. So we got separated in 2012. We had 2 lovely babies who are still with us now. I mean, we co-parent. So the thing is now we do
and that we'll talk about very important aspects.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And I got remarried myself. I got remarried. And I'm in year 9 of second marriage.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the journey was, by the time I was getting divorced, and I tell people that it was, so I never got married to get divorced. Okay, that was not the end goal. Actually, what we were even premarital counselors,
right,
even during that time. So we were helping other people get married and helping other marriages. So when this happened, it was a shocker, and it was a disbelief for everybody. Even the church themselves, they didn't know how to deal with us. So the support system I'm talking about is because even the church doesn't know how to deal with you, who they were looking up to. And they had given you that responsibility of being part of the team that actually guides and heads those marriage ministry. So now if your marriage is broken, then where do we throw you, right? We usually make that joke that when you get divorced, you become like a leper. And you're told to go stay out of the gates, that like they used to tell people in the olden days in the Bible, that you have to stay out of the gates because you're full of leprosy, right? And that's why now it gave this idea of actually now being out there. And even if they look at you as a guy who went divorced, but they can see. So what is happening is the people who are going through that are able to reach out and say, okay, we need help to be able to do this. And we're trying to tell people, listen, yes, there are all these baggages that come with it, but there's a way that you can be able to deal with it. And we tell the church, especially the church, that this is not the ultimate sin. Okay, because they always consider like it's like the ultimate, because God said he hates divorce, then you think that's the ultimate. But he said other 6 things that he hates, right? So it's not the only thing that
is bad.
It's bad.
Right.
It's bad, of course.
Yes.
And you can see why the divorce comes up with baggages and because of children and other stuff. But the issue is it's not the only bad thing, right?
You know, society today appreciates. Perhaps it wasn't the case some years back when you look at the good book, you know, when you look at the family unit, when you look at the kids, it was extremely bad to even imagine that you can walk out of that marriage. You had to stay in there. Now, upambane na hali mpaka, you know what, you know, eventually you say, fine, well and good. Very few people are bold to make that move of stepping out, you know. Why do you suppose this is the case? And is it much better for you to step out than to stay in this relationship that is toxic? You know, speaking to the people who are struggling this morning, you know, pata mtu analia, but because then marriage is very important, and, you know, God hates divorce. And you know, it's not greener on the other side, as they would tell you. Even the church will recommend that you stick around that place until things will be good.
I think for me, what I tell people is you're better off stepping out and facing the world than your family collecting your body. You know, a lot of the times we were encouraged, especially women, you know, there was that whole thing of stay in your marriage, mwanamke ni kuvumilia, and all those things. And personally, I went through all that until you get to a point where you say, it's enough. But the greatest challenge is stigma.
Yeah.
You know, you hear conversations even, I'll give you an example. I was in a chama where there were only married women. So you can imagine what happened the day I decided I'm walking out of my marriage. You wake up and you're out of WhatsApp groups. You know, the stigma. What
do you mean you're out?
You've been kicked out.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Can it get to that point?
It does get to that point.
No. Really?
Yes. You will not be invited for family functions because everybody is coming with their spouses and you're coming alone. Okay? For me, my status changed. You know, you're married to a well-off person and now you're on your own. So you're probably not able to afford the things you could. You are probably not able to dress the way you would dress. You're probably not driving what you are driving. So people disassociate with you. So minus that stigma by society, there's also personal stigma. You know, because already, like for me, I know growing up, one of the worst conversations was about divorcees. You know, so I'm like, how do I go back and say that now I actually want to walk out of my marriage? So the biggest challenge is, as Hutia was saying, is stigma. You're stigmatized and people refuse to talk about it. You will have a situation where you walk out of a marriage And your family or friends or relatives will never even have that conversation to
With
say,
you.
did you know?
Yeah.
Not even with you, with other people like to say, you know, my sister walked out of her marriage. They will not want society to know. So they would rather lie about it than actually address and be stigmatized that you have a child who's divorced, you have a cousin who's divorced, your friend is divorced. So stigma is real. So it also causes self-stigmatization where you lack confidence in yourself, which is very difficult even in the workplace. And what we keep talking about, mental health issues, you get into depression.
Right.
Yes.
And so the conversation this morning is, relationships after divorce. I don't know whether there are any, but I thought it wise to begin at that very point, perhaps listening to your stories and of importance, just getting it from the base level. First of all, the difficulty that comes along with, deciding that eventually this is not working. And especially when we're talking about 12 years, 14 years, and 10 years, it does not make sense. You don't understand why you have managed a whole 10-year, journey for you to come and give up at this very point. I know it's funny, I have had people who've done weddings and, in 2-3 months, it is done. That boldness of saying that, well, this is just not working. How do we get to gather that? How do we accept that it's fine? Society will judge us, but perhaps this is the best decision.
So, this is what I've been saying. The bigger part, we need to look at where the problem is, okay? And I say, and a lot of people usually don't like it or they challenge.
Yeah.
I usually say that nothing goes wrong, it starts wrong. Okay? So it does never go wrong, it starts wrong. Okay? We could talk about inside there, something went wrong, but the base actually started wrong. So the reason should be, why are you getting married? Okay, most of us are getting married because it's a rites of passage. Okay, I've gotten to a certain age, my clock is ticking, my eggs are ending or finishing, and so on. I have to get married to get kids. Okay, so there's a whole plan or a process that has been created by man of what you need to follow and how you need to follow to get there. So you do it just because of society, because of the process, and not really asking yourself, do I really need to? Okay. I also say, marriage is not a condition for even the Christians to get to heaven. Okay, nobody said that you have to get married for you to get a ticket to get to heaven. So it's not a must to get married. Okay, but when we put so much pressure on people that they need to go through this process, then they go and get into these systems which now don't get them to the right positions. Okay, and that's where they get now all these issues coming in. So you find yourself in a bad relationship, bad marriage, that you cannot be able to and you ask about most of the marriages, they tell you it's for the kids. We're there for the kids.
But sometimes it's even bad, but you love this person. Yes, it is bad, but you just find yourself, you still love this woman, you still love this man.
So I ask this, the question is this, if you love this person, and now maybe these are whole totally complete different conversation, what is love? Okay, love is not like a feeling, like a tickle that you have. Love, it talks about love is kind. Love is, it gives you all this, that love is non-seeking. Love, so there's more to love than just that feeling. So you cannot get to a point that you say you love this person, but you still right? So there are sacrifices that you make, and it talks about love covers a multitude of sin. Okay, so there are things that you. And love is more giving than even receiving, okay? So there are a lot of those things that you need to look at. So relationships, and you go back to the base, that is, relationship are two people. You can never relate by yourself. So you can never be in a marriage by yourself. This other person really has to be in the marriage and needs to be in the marriage and wants to be in that marriage, or even a relationship, because it's two of you. So if one is checked out and the other one, and I'm not saying we shouldn't fight for our marriages, we should, but the thing is, you can never relate by yourself or with yourself, okay? So the two of you have to be out there and say, you know what, we are fighting for this, and it's because of X, Y, Z. It's not because of the children, it's because of us, that we are creating a relationship that is us for why. And you need to get to define why. Okay? So it's not just about being there, doing this big wedding, living this big house, getting these many children, taking them to these big schools. That is not it. There's a component of you, the two of you who have become one, that then drives this whole relationship. When that oneness gets out, then everything starts crumbling. Okay? Because the issue is, being in a dysfunctional marriage and having children raises out dysfunctional children. Because now they see this is the way the marriages are supposed to be, which is the wrong way that the marriage is supposed to be. Because my father and mother lived like this, then it means this is how the relationship is supposed to be.
Right.
And you are proud saying, I've been in 20 years married and 30 years married, but what kind of marriage do you have? What quality of marriage are you living in?
Well, they say it's never perfect. I don't know. But I assume there are stages to divorce, specific stages that you'll go through. That stage of saying, like women, I'm told you say that, you begin saying, I'm going to go, I am going to divorce you 10 times before now you make that final step and you step out. So these stages, how complicated do they get when kids are involved, when maybe the extended family is involved, when very close people are involved?
It gets very complicated and it gets very messy. So as you're saying, I think Hutia will talk for the guys, I'll talk for the ladies. So for a lady, by the time she says, I'm done, I remember one of my ex's friends saying, when a woman says she's done, she really is done. Yeah. So we kind of process it while we're still in it. Then now you prepare yourself and now you decide you're going to tell your family this is where you have reached. Yeah. Now that's where the challenge begins. Because what happens is most of the time, especially if you're in the church setup, scripture is thrown at you. Right. You're told a wise woman holds her house together, a foolish woman scatters it with both her hands. So you have to first deal with self. And a lot of times we think we are prepared to jump out because we will prepare for a long time. But when we jump out, it's like you're jumping into the darkness. You don't know where you will fall. Yeah. So that becomes complicated. Remember, when you're jumping out with your kids who have absolutely no idea what happened. It's like waking up your kids in the middle of the night and telling them, let's go. So the kids are the most affected because they have these two adults who are not adulting. I mean, why can't you sit down like adults and resolve this so that our lives can continue? So for a long time, when you leave, my experience was, for a long time, I had very angry children who felt I should not have carried them. Maybe they would have been better
at dad's place, or when the two of you were there together.
But now how do I start explaining to my children that I can't leave you with him because I'm afraid he will abuse you because now I'm not there, you'll be the next victims. So there's that first stage of just, like jumping out of it. Then there's the stage of now you're out, what next? Okay? Personally, I thought I was prepared. I got financially independent. I moved towns because I realized my family were really not into it. So I moved to Nakuru. I lived there for a while. I started building networks on my own. What I forgot is that I'm dealing with strangers, not friends, people who don't know my background and my story. So that complicates even more. I moved my kids' school. So they're wondering, why are you moving us away from our friends, our church, family? So they get lonely. You see, now they are forced even to adapt to a lifestyle that they have no idea. My kids could not talk Kiswahili. So it was interesting, for them. But now, I mean, they are, they are with it. So there are those stages where people don't preempt. You don't have that capacity to think of what happens. So now you're ready, then you leave. Then there is the tussle for those people who go into court and just have the battles. That, for me, I was fortunate not to go through that. But it's because I chose. I did not want, I felt I was too damaged. I couldn't handle the back and forth. I remember his mom telling me, why don't you take him to court for child support? I did not have the energy or the capacity. I just wanted out. So now there's the legal factor. Then you finish that. Then now you start rebuilding.
Let's come back to that after this short break. Okay.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
of the lady. And so you are a man and you have to go through this process. It gets more complicated when the kids are there. Thank God to this thing of co-parenting nowadays that we have embraced so much, so appearing to work, yeah? At least you can confidently and comfortably get to engage with your kids and all that. But initially, it was like you are detached from them like for the rest of time. You perhaps will never get to see them again, or maybe when they grow up is when now they move around looking for dad and all that. Fortunately for ladies, they will always be the people who will go with the kids, unless, you know, you have gone through court battles and, you know, it's justified that as a man you're supposed to go with a kid. How complicated does it get?
See, as you're saying, and you rightfully say that, Linda, is that now it's changed. During our time, and most of the time, ladies want to use the kids as weapons, okay? So you don't even get to see your own kids, right? Before you go to those battles and fighting, okay? I used to have that challenge in the beginning. Right now it's cordial. You get to that point, it's cordial and there's no problem. You get access to those kids. But the problem is now, you see, you're living a relationship. Remember where we talked about there are this relationship that you formed. So when you get married, your friends are married couples with children, okay? So when you break up, then now you cannot even go to those functions as Catherine was talking about. That now you can't come because a lot of people now start looking, and that's what even sometimes I got my friends being told by their wives, please stop hanging around Hootie a lot. Yeah. You might just be infected by that disease.
Right.
And they start getting scared that these guys also will think about that whole process, okay? So it becomes more difficult now because you don't have your friends, you don't have the families that you used to be with, you don't have even your kids. So the man is now more alone, okay? The lady would say, yes, we're having issues, we don't have food, but they get to have that relationship with the kids and they have people around them, okay? Your friends don't even know what to do with you. The best thing they'll tell you, let's go for a drink, we'll get you a mama, right? They'll be ready to offer, I know this mama, let's call them up and come with your friend, and that's the solution that they give you. But at the end of the day, you are still alone, okay? So that ecosystem around you already crumbles. So it becomes very hard. And as men, we don't know how to ask for help. So we always think that we are guys who are supposed to sort problems out, solve issues. So you want even to solve this issue that you have, but you don't have the skills or the knowledge of how to do it. So what you do is you mess up more than you actually build.
Yeah.
Okay, so it becomes more because now you have a lady, you come start what you call unhealthy relationships, get all these things and now want to revenge out there because of this woman who has done this thing to you. So it becomes more nasty, right? So it becomes crazier. So what happens is then, without this system, and that's why we even started this divorce care program, is then creating these systems and foundation and even group therapies where people can be able now to come and you have a community and what we call a tribe. Because then you're able to come and start getting to learn this, okay? To date, we are still seeing the problem. We have more ladies than men, and men don't come and seek that help, okay? And the men are supposed to be the heads of the society. So what happens is they think they're okay. So you get to another relationship, you go mess up, it breaks. So we find more of broken men out there than women who have gone and seek help, and men who are not even trying to seek that help because they think they know.
Right, and Kate, this is quite unfortunate, and in most cases then you land in worse relationships, or perhaps you end up staying, alone for the rest of time, which equally is not so good.
Yes.
And on very rare occasions, you want to go back to the same partner, overlooking all the troubles that have been there. Perhaps you try up it's not easy now, you start chasing them again.
Yes.
And I have seen people going back together, some successfully, some will go for another year or two, and then back to the drawing board.
When you leave the relationship, you lose, Hootie usually says a man loses his empire, a woman loses her home. So because we are born to create, there's always that attempt to recreate. So you find yourself in relationships that tend to promise something similar but better. So of course, you go back into relationships to try and see if you can rebuild. The only thing is that, and it's a problem with most people, sometimes we go in with the same mentality. And that is what part of divorce recovery is all about. Because if it didn't work the first time, a lot of people leave with the mentality that the other person was the problem. but you also have problems. You also are a problem, you know. So one of the things is that a lot of people will live with thinking they will go find somebody better, and then they will go into these relationships. And actually they are called unhealthy coping mechanisms, where people pick things. Relationships is one of them. Alcohol is another one, different kind of addictions. So it gets to a point where now for us, what we are telling people is, why don't you come first deal with yourself? Stop blaming the other person that the relationship failed, so that even if you're moving into another relationship, you're very clear on what you want, and you actually understand what love is, as you're trying to explain, and what marriage is all about, you see. Because a lot of the times when we leave, we're in a hurry to recreate either the empire or the home, and that's the biggest mistake. So some people will go out there and discover that it's not working. So what they will do is try and go and recreate something that was already not working.
Right.
Yeah, but you contend with the fact that this was better than what is out there. Then now you actually start becoming the problem. So for us, when we do divorce recovery, it's not really about other people, it's about the person. And also if you make the decision to go back, the question is, what will you do different? And one of the things I tell people when they come for a divorce recovery group therapy, I tell them, remember you're the only one in this session. But if you come, the two of you, then there's more hope to actually say, let's remarry. But if you go, you're the only one who went through divorce recovery and the other person didn't, you're just walking back into the same burning house. So for me, what I encourage people is, when you're walking out of a marriage and you want to create something else, first, before you jump into another relationship, take time, correct yourself. I mean, that's the past. The other person is entirely responsible for themselves. But first, discover the things you need to change about self, even your perception, and what you think about marriage, so that now you start on a proper foundation. If not, you will keep moving from one relationship to the next.
Yes. What does it take to work on yourself? I know most of the times maybe you'd walk out of that marriage and you blame the other party, but on several occasions you'll find people self-doubting. And even when you march into this next relationship, you march with a lot of fears. What if it does not work? What if people now are going to say that I'm a problem? And sometimes you're even told there's that blood that follows you. Sasa kama umeanza hivi, that should be the conversation all through. So the next one that you walk into, even if it doesn't work right, as much as you tried your level best, even if the other party is the mistake, the world will just look at you and say, well, you must be the problem because your first one did not work. This second one did not work. And sometimes you have to go extra and strain just so this other one works, so that the society does not label you as that person.
So they actually say the failure rates of the second marriages are much higher than the first one. Reasons being is you get to points, the process of getting out and so on. Maybe your patience is, and my wife tells me that I was very nasty. And it's true, because at this time you just say, you know what, I don't care. If you want to go, right?
Yeah.
And the other one, you had tried to give everything, okay? And the question that you had asked, most of the time when people actually walk out, is not when they left that marriage.
Okay. They had left a long time ago.
A couple of years before.
Yeah.
This is just a manifestation of what has been happening. Okay. So what happens now is, when you're getting into the second relationship, if you've not worked on yourself to start with, then you carry all these baggages, and they are refined even in this other relationship. Probably you are more tolerant in the other one. This one you feel like, I don't need to. It might break, it could break, so it can happen, whatever. I'm not going to give more time because it will break, it can break.
Yeah.
And they have all these things that are at the back. And that's why you need to go in there, already worked on yourself, and saying, you know what, I'm giving this other person a chance, and a separate chance from what? Because you get to attach and compare a lot of times the other relationship or the other person that you had, okay? So you need to actually be deliberate. So it requires more work, because you have to be more deliberate in the things you do, and even in this relationship, okay? Giving this other person fresh chance, giving yourself also that part of the chance. And the bigger part is, forgiveness plays a really big part in this whole process. Because, and a lot of times we think we are forgiving the other person. You need to also forgive yourself. As Catherine said, a relationship is two people. There's no way you can only blame the other person. You had a stake in this also. Okay, it cannot just be the other person. You had a part to play also in this relationship. So when you realize that it is two, and we're actually working together to make this work, is how much then do you invest? Okay, the quick issue is how much do we invest in our relationships?
Yeah.
Okay, you invest in your education. You invest and do masters, you do night running, you pay all these things to do, but how much do you invest in your relationship? Okay? As I said, you're expecting it to be a rites of passage, and it's a roller coaster. And when I'm in it, and a lot of us Christians say, we expect Jesus to come and live in this marriage, okay? Which is not the thing, right? So you have to invest. The same way you invest in like an organization, you will do a research, for example, on the topic of divorce. When you're coming here, you do research. How many times do we sit down to do that even for our relationships, for our marriages? We never do, okay? I will research on where my children will go to school. I research on which colleges they will go to, on what extra curriculum. I go to this swimming club, I go to this, and your marriage, you just let it flow. We go with the flow. It's on a roller coaster. And that's the bigger problem. So you invest nothing and expect something. You've planted nothing, you'll harvest nothing. So the bigger part is whatever relationship it is, whether the first one, and because we say that we are not here, even though we are doing divorce recovery, we are not advocating for divorce. What we are saying is this has happened, we need to help you through. So even in the current relationship, if you expect to get better outcomes of them, you have to invest in them. You get into the second one, you have to change the way you did things. You have to invest in it to be able to get a better return into that.
And so professional help in this case, I hear, would be important based on what it is that you're saying. And like you say, professional in this case would be speaking to people like you, would be speaking to counselors, perhaps to, you know, ordained men of God. But sometimes we tend to overlook that, perhaps in the name of it is expensive, or maybe we do not see the essence of that. You just want to, you know, enclose yourself somewhere in your own cocoon and go through that healing process, you know, by yourself. Just what is the essence of this? If you would speak to the people who are watching this morning, you know, seek professional help as opposed to, you know, help unnecessarily. You know, sometimes you just want to talk to someone who's going through the same thing as you in the name of, well, at least wanasemanga, you know, troubles would always want to have the same company, around your company and all that. So what is the essence of professional help in this case?
Just touching on what you've said, I isolated myself for a year after everything. And for me, the idea was to seek and find myself. Yeah. And I thought I could resolve the issue by just shutting myself down and doing what I did. It helped, but then the other thing is very dangerous because you go into depression. You know, people will help you get out of this. You can see a counselor, but it's important also to say, please get somebody who has experience in what you're going through or has deep or has more understanding about it. Because sometimes we will go maybe even to clergy who have no idea what divorce entails. So the thing is, professional help is very important because if you go for therapy and maybe what you're going through is depression, it may not get you out of it, you know. And there should be no shame in mental health or that you're struggling. I know people think men struggle, but women also struggle. They struggle in other ways. But the thing is, therapy is so important. We have come to a point, you'll ask somebody, then will say, "Zivitu nizo wazungu." But the reality is, they are struggling the same things that we are struggling. It is so sad to see the rate of people killing each other in marriages. You know, that is one of the saddest things and for me, I had reached that point where I was like, I'm losing hope. And just getting to that point of, I need help. And I remember even when I went to Nakuru, a friend is one who came and told me, you know what, you actually need to get professional help. And we approach it with spite. We approach it with people will think I'm crazy, people will think I'm helpless. But the reality is, yes, you need help. I mean, no man is an island. You can't do this on your own. You need people. If you're too afraid to do it on your own, then join group therapy, where you have a group of people who are sharing similar experiences. And for me, one of the best things I did for myself is do the group therapy. Because then I met people, and by the time I was going home, I was like, I thought my situation was bad. And
it was.
Exactly. Or you find somebody who has gone before you and something you are struggling with, even things like parenting. You know, you're having a challenge with a child and you come and say, this is what I'm struggling with. Someone tells you, don't worry, it will pass, it's a stage. So therapy is so important. I don't know how much more to emphasize it. But if you can't get a counselor who is, you know, a one-on-one counselor, join a group therapy like what we do at Oasis. Just join us and, you know, you will actually meet other people who are going through similar experiences. You will get practical help. Like the guys who are left with their kids, I know they have situations where they will help each other look for house helps, you know, teach each other how to shop for the house, things that they never did. For us women is to empower each other economically. I don't have a job, I don't have money, I don't have, maybe because you are actually maintained or given money, then you help each other. So therapy is so important. Don't shut down, don't lock yourself down. Don't, even that self-stigmatization of, I can't do this. You know, you can, but the only thing is the first step is, you know, step out and admit that, yes, I'm struggling and divorce is difficult.
And maybe it's okay to be in isolation for a point, or maybe sometimes find, you know, solace in, you know, other people who've gone through the same, as they would say. I think someone reminded me that it's misery loves company. Yeah?
Yes.
So at what point do you now start thinking of engaging the other partner, especially when there are kids involved? Kate might have decided now, you know, it's gone and gone and gone forever. As a father, maybe the partner would say, well, there's no way I'm staying without my kids. And so they'll start legal battles and everything. So at what point do you come to speak to this other partner of yours, get to a point of saying, let's co-parent, and now think of how you're going to engage other partners and get them to understand that this is my situation, this is our situation, it's quite a web, but please bear with us.
See, what I say, and personally, I'm very categorical in taking care of my seed, okay? So you have to be, and we have a lot of men here who don't care. Okay, I'll get babies with everybody. And I tell them, you can't keep throwing your seeds everywhere and you don't even take care of them, right? So you have to be intentional, because it's very easy. As a father, I don't have that story of paying school fees, taking care of that. I will start sherehe somewhere else, okay? And let these other family or whoever they are at this point, because you don't probably consider that, do whatever they need to do. So as a person, you have to be very categorical, and this goes back to what values do you have, okay? The question back, why did you get married? Why did you start these relationships, right? So if it was just a rites of passage, that's why probably you don't care about what happens to them. But if you're deliberate to know if you're going to raise up godly offsprings, right, then you'll be eager and fight even for those children, because you know the value. The thing is, as a woman, you'll never show those kids the part of a man. As a man, I cannot show them the part of a man. So you can't. And that's why, if God actually wanted us to get kids by ourselves, probably a man, I'll be just doing a click and get babies. As a woman, I'll maybe do a dance and get babies. And you don't have to be together, right? There's a reason why you have to be the man and the woman and raise these kids together, okay? You could be not together at the same place or staying together, but the influence, the effect that you bring even from wherever you are, then makes that difference. I'm not saying it's easy. It has its own challenges, because you have now two sets of homes, per se to say. Right? These kids will come here. I have my sets of rules with my wife. They have their mother there who has her sets of rules and whatever it is. And now you have to come and bring this together, and the kids are confused. Probably me, I let them watch TV until midnight. There they cannot watch TV, so they come and blamed where mbono na changa watoto wanange tu TV hivi. I say, this is my home, right? So there are all those challenges, and also trying to be able to get to points where now you have that balance of how you co-parent between there. It has its own challenges, okay? And one of the reasons why God hates divorce is because of this, because now there is now that component of now raising these kids from different places, okay, introduced, and that's where now it brings the story of not only co-parenting, there's also blended families. Because I'll get a woman who has children, she'll get maybe a man who has other children, they have to start interacting, they're told this is your brother, stepbrother, and it becomes a whole quagmire of things that have to happen, okay? So it's really, really important you as an individual, be it a woman or a man, and we've seen other women who are actually dumping kids to their fathers and say, I don't want anything to do with it. Yes. So it used to be thought it's only men, but even when women are doing that now and saying, I don't want to do anything with these children, they're yours, deal, okay? So you have to have that resolve that I want to take care of my seed, of my offspring. I want to see the things that I didn't do correct. I want to see different in them. Okay? And you said something, it's not perfect. It's not even for us who've gone second round, it's not perfect. What you do is you're bold enough to say, you know what, I'm willing to try it again, and I'm willing to make those failures and correct whatever I did wrong.
Oh, incredible. How I wish we had 1 more hour to speak to this, and the feedback is immense, and time is not here. 30 seconds to sum it up, because we can never speak of everything about this. Kate.
I think if you're at a stage where you are going through divorce, it's inevitable. The only thing is work on yourself. Healing is a process, as I said. So heal, and there's so much to live for. Life is beautiful. So don't get stuck on the fact that I'm divorced and all hope is gone. Just find a way to heal and deal with it and work with it, so that, I mean, life is beautiful. Yeah, I think
and it's quite complicated, this conversation. So close it for us, Tony, in 30 seconds.
Relationship, as I said before, it's two people, and you have to invest in them. Okay, people need to know that getting divorced is not a plan when you're getting married. So it's something that happens, and it's very easy. If you don't, nasema usipoziba ufa, and that is the thing. So, and most of the time we need to take care of our relationships early and prevent, and they talk about prevention is better than cure, right? So the idea is to have that prevention and make sure that you plan, and that's why I'm talking about it doesn't go wrong, it starts wrong. Make sure that your foundations are correct, so that whatever you're building on those foundations will last.
Good. I'll only read one comment. One. Celine says, Linda, I have divorced. I've not been able to move on. And most of the times with one baby, she says. And so most of the times I'm always given this pressure to add another baby. Some are advising me to go back to my husband or my previous husband, get a baby with them, so that at least they are from the same father, and then perhaps move on if I have decided to stay alone. How do I manage this? Because the pressure is getting worse. That's what she says. Interesting. I don't know. This one we cannot respond to right now because we don't have time, but I'll appreciate Catherine Nohio as well as Tony Hutia for speaking to us this morning. I know questions would always trickle in because people are going through this and suffering in silence. If you can, get professional help or therapy, as the lady and the gentleman would remind us. Allow us to close it at that very point. It's exactly 30 minutes. I know you want to say something, but we